Having elaborated the rules of commanding good and forbidding evil, we may summarize then the three attributes that a Muslim censurer should enjoy to be capable of undertaking the task. They are knowledge of the appropriate circumstance where censure is required, their limits and definitions, so as to keep it within the Shari bounds. Fearing the Almighty, in whose absence one may disregard a certain rule to secure some interests. Good manners, in fact, this is essential. Getting angry, one is calmed down by his good manners, along with piety and his knowledge. This clearly stated by some early Muslims. Commanding right should be observed by a kind, gentle, and knowledgeable man. He should also reduce the scope of his worldly interests and his dependence on others so that his principles are not compromised. Once an early Muslim had a neighbor who was a butcher. He used to take from him an offal for his cat. One day he noticed something evil with his neighbor. Before going to reform him, he turned out the cat. Getting reproved, the butcher said, "I will never give anything for your cat." Whereupon he remarked, "I have turned out my cat before reproving you." In fact, one cannot reform others so long as he is worried by two factors. These are things he receives from them and their pleasure with and praise of him. The main difference between commanding the right and forbidding the wrong is clearly stated in the Quran, where Allah says, "But speak to him mildly, perchance he may take warning or fear Allah." Taha 44. It is reported that once Abu Ardada passed by a sinful person while people were reviling him. He told them, "Finding him fallen in a well, would not you take him out?" They replied in the affirmative. Whereupon he remarked, "Do not revile your brother." They asked him, "Do you not hate him?" He said, "I rather hate his deed. If he gives it up, he will be my brother."
So attributes of religious censurer. Having elaborated the rules of commanding good and forbidding evil, we may summarize the three attributes that a Muslim censurer should enjoy to be capable of undertaking the task. They are knowledge of the appropriate circumstance where censure is required, the limits and definitions, so as to keep it within the Sharia bounds. As these are some of the important things for anyone who is enjoining the good and forbidding the wrong. Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah mentioned three important things, three important attributes, though there are many others, but he has focused upon the important ones. First one is knowledge of appropriate circumstance, where censure is required, the limits and definitions, so as to keep it within the Sharia bounds. So the knowledge is very important. As I said before, that Islam is not all about the emotions. It's about the practical approach. It's about the rational things. It's about the ahkam, the commandments of Allah, prohibitions of Allah. So one must be aware about what are the commandments of Allah which are being violated. What are the prohibitions of Allah which are being practiced. So when a person is not knowing that what is commanded and what is prohibited, he cannot rather he can worsen the situation. He will command such things which are prohibited, or he will prohibit the things which are commanded. So it is important for a person that he must know that what's lawful and what's unlawful, and then he must also know the degrees of the unlawful, degrees of the evil, because all the evil is not of same nature. As Imam Al-Ghazali mentions, al-ma'asi tatafawat. Al-ma'asi tatafawat, that the degree of disobedience vary. It's not all the same. And the one who forbids the wrong, he must know these degrees of evil, and he should not equate them all. the evil of uh, just for example, evil of uh, drinking the liquor, consuming the liquor, cannot be appropriated with killing an innocent human being. Though both are evil, but the degree and the gravity of both the evils vary. And a person must be aware about it. He must know that what is to be done and what not. For example, a person, he saw another person consuming the liquor, and now he gets up and he beats him harshly. On his part, he thinks that he's doing something good. He's doing something. He's forbidding the wrong. He's forbidding the evil. But in essence, he's doing against the law of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. He beats him to the level which even if the court of law would not award such a beating to him. So it is very important for a person to have the knowledge. So knowledge is the first and foremost prerequisite. Is a first precondition for practicing this particular hukum of Sharia, that is forbidding the evil. So knowledge of the appropriate circumstance. Then he must be aware about also the circumstance. It's not only the knowledge, then the circumstance itself, the situation itself. He must be aware about it. And then second important thing for him is to fearing the Almighty, in whose absence one may disregard a certain rule to secure some interests. This is very, very important. Because when a person is prohibiting the evil, he must always keep in mind that he's doing this only for the sake of Allah. Otherwise, there are many other reasons, many interests involved. So if there's any other interest involved, which is not to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this forbidding the wrong or commanding the good will bear no fruit for him. It's all useless for a person. All our efforts, whatever energy we spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it is not for him, then it is all useless. It's all useless. And the third thing is good manners. So first one, knowledge. Second one, the taqwa. And the third one, akhlaq. So ilmu, at-taqwa, al-ilmu, at-taqwa, and al-akhlaq. Ilmu, taqwa, akhlaq. These are three important things which must be found in a person by practicing this particular hukum of Sharia, that is forbidding the evil. Good manners, in fact, this is essential. Getting angry, one is calmed down by his good manners, along with the piety and his knowledge. When three things are put together, knowledge, piety, and good manners, and they are put together, even if a person sometimes gets angry, he can have the control upon himself. He can subjugate his nafs. He can restrict his nafs, which is sometimes very difficult to restrict. But if a person is having these three things in him, that's knowledge, taqwa, and akhlaq, he will be easily able to control his nafs, which is important for a person to practice this particular hukum of Sharia. This clearly stated by some early scholars, some early Muslims, commanding right should be observed by a kind, gentle, and knowledgeable man. Because if, as I told you before, that the human psychology is that if you approach a person softly, it will have the good impact upon him. If you address a person harshly, it will have the negative impact upon him. So it's very important for a person to be soft and to be kind enough. Though these are very easy, these things are very easy to say, but very difficult to practice also. But those who practice them, they are undoubtedly we can say, the best human resource on the planet. And some of the early Muslims, they said commanding right should be observed by a kind, gentle, and knowledgeable man. because he knows the situation. He knows how to handle the people of different temperament. Even if some people prove to be harsh, he knows how to calm them down. If some people are arrogant, he know he knows the methods how to bring down their arrogance. So a knowledgeable person, a man of taqwa, and a man with good akhlaq, he has the capability to hold the situation, to address the problem in a much better way. He should also reduce the scope of his worldly interests and his dependence on others so that his principles are not compromised. This is very, very important. Sometimes you see a person doing wrong, but your interests are involved with him. So this stops you saying him that you're doing wrong. Because a person feels that if I say, then the favor he is doing to him, uh, he will no more do this favor to him. So this stops him practicing this particular ibadah. However, a person, the one who practices this, he should always have full faith in Allah, not in the people. Because by the end of the day, we are all dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqara'u. Indeed, all of you are the poor, the beggars. Wallahu ghani. The only reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can a beggar help other beggars? Yes, Allah says to us, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. You cooperate each other in the matters of piety and good. It's mentioned in the Quran. At the same breath, uh, a person should not think that, yes, it is a person who is able to help me. Rather, these are the means. Allah has created the means for us. So we should not believe in the means, rather we must have our faith in the facilitator of the means, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is asbab and second is musabbibul asbab. Asbab means means, and then is musabbibul asbab, the creator and the facilitator of the means. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one should not be worried about if I say something against him, which he feels, which makes him to feel offended. Then, if he feels offended, then he will not do the favor to me as he used to do. So these are all the signs of the weak iman, weak faith, because this way a person thinks is that person who is providing the sustenance to him, livelihood to him. So his faith in Allah is weaker, and his faith in that person is stronger, which is against the fundamentals of iman. So they said that he should not compromise with his principles, come what may. So when you see a person doing wrong, we cannot justify it for this pretext that he's doing favor to us. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, when he went against the Fir'aun, since we know the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he was brought up in the palace under the supervision of Fir'aun himself. So he took care of him. All his needs were fulfilled by the Fir'aun. It is mentioned when Musa والسلام, went against the Fir'aun, told him that he stopped the injustice you are doing against the people. Then he started expressing his favor. That isn't it me who brought you up? Isn't it me who provided everything to you? Now you are going against me. And Musa alayhi Allah says it's mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Musa alayhi said to him, does it mean that you will all what you do, I should keep mum, I should turn and try. I see you are oppressing the people, you are subjugating them, you are suppressing them, and you are expressing your favor that I have raised you, I have provided everything to you. How does it just justify your oppression? So Musa alayhi did not come under his impression. He did not come under the impression of his favor he did to him. So he was readily motivated to give it up all. And he did, Musa alayhi salam. He did it. He left everything for the sake of haqq, for the sake of truth. Same should be the level of those who are practicing this. The men of knowledge, men of taqwa, men of akhlaq, they should not compromise with their principles. They see a person who is doing favor to them, and then when they see them doing something wrong and they keep mum, it's not befitting for a scholar. It's not befitting for a person who has a full faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said, we are all Ibadur Razzaq. Razzaq is up in the heaven. Is up in the heaven. And all the people are Ibadur Razzaq, the slaves of Razzaq. Razzaq is the attribute of Allah, the one who provides the rizqi to us, who provides the provisions to us. So one should not be misled under this impression that uh, that if I say something, if I forbid him doing wrong, if I prohibit him, then he will stop just providing his favors to me. This is against the principles of the Iman. And there's a story about it. Imam Al-Ghazali rahimahullah says, one early Muslim had a neighbor who was a butcher. He used to take from him an offal for his cat. One day he noticed something evil with his neighbor. Before going to reprove him, he turned out the cat. Getting reproved, the butcher said, I will never give anything for you, for your cat. Whereupon he remarked, I have turned out my cat before reproving you. In fact, one cannot reform others for as long he is worried by two factors. These are the things he receives from them and their pleasure with and praise of him. So, and this pious person who was getting the offal from the butcher, and he saw the butcher doing something wrong. So before he could go and reprimand him, he just he let the cat go. So that he will not feel any sort of dependence upon the butcher. And butcher, he said, I will not give anything to you anymore, because he felt offended. I am doing this favor to him every day, and now he's scolding me and he's reprimanding me. The true sincerity of a person is that the butcher should have been joyous enough. Should have thanked him that at least there's a person who is to inform him about his wrongdoings. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said that I'm thankful to my best friend is the one who points out the faults to me. Usually the friends, they cover the faults. This way a person does not become aware of his faults. So Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said that and my best friend is the one who says to me, Umar, you have this problem, you fix this. Umar radiallahu anhu, you have this problem, you try to just remove this. He's my best friend. So we should always take these things in such way. If we are doing something wrong and any of our friend or neighbor highlights it and shows us that this thing is not good in you, we should accept it wholeheartedly. And we should think that he's our benefactor. He's our well-wisher. Because if I were unaware of my fault, then this fault would remain with me all along with my life, and it could be potentially be responsible for my destruction in the akhirah. So a person should not take it ill. A person should not take it wrong, but to take it to the heart that if he's being scolded or reprimanded, then he feel offended. You should never feel this kind of offense. And the main difference between commanding the right and forbidding the wrong is clearly stated in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but speak to him mildly, perchance he may take warning or fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the gist of the nasiha. Why we are supposed to give the nasiha to others, why we are supposed to speak mildly to others, why we are supposed to command the good and forbid the wrong, that he may fear Allah, he may take this warning, he may turn to this, he may address this properly, and he will fix his problems. It's reported that once Abu Ad-Darda passed by a sinful person. While people were reviling him, he told them, finding him fallen in a well, would not you take him out? They replied in the affirmative. Whereupon he remarked, do not revile your brother, They asked him, do you not hate him? He said, I rather hate his deed. If he gives it up, he'll be my brother. That is the true essence of dawah. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu is one of the famous companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his scholarship, his piety, there are many of the hadiths mentioning his high position. However, still he was so humble, and knowing the prophetic nature, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the prophetic teachings, and practicing them. So when he saw that the people they were reviling him, they were dishonoring him, and actually, as I said before, that when there's overflow of emotions, that time Shaitan is very, very cautious. He always waits that very particular situation when our emotions are out of control. That very moment, he uses the banner of the signboard of Islam. He makes us to think that you are doing this good, you are doing this for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Islam. That's why you are very much angry. But in essence, in principle, that anger is not for Allah. That's for his own self. Anger for Allah means following the commandments of Allah. Love for Allah means following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, when he saw these people reviling him, and then to make them realize that your approach is wrong, you should fix your approach. So he gave an example to them. But finding him fallen in a well, if you come to know that the same person, he is in the well, he fell into the well, and there's no way out for him. Would you not take him out? Want to try your best? Want to use all your possible potential to ensure his safe delivery from the well? They replied in the affirmative. He said, yes. Whereupon he remarked, do not revile your brother. Now, since, as I said, the emotions were at the top, there was the overspread of the overflow of the emotions, they said. Whereupon they said, do you not hate him? Because he did wrong, he committed a sin. Don't you hate him? So what he said, he replied, I rather hate his deed. If he gives it up, he'll be my brother. So here we can say that the famous statement, hate the sin, not the sinner. You can say the origin is from Abu Darda radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And even Imam Shafi rahimahullah is also reported to have said, hate the sin, not the sinner. Long before I had come across with this statement, this quotation, but I was not knowing that the origin is from our own tradition. Hate the sin, not the sinner. So this was all about the attributes of religious censurer.